Hello, this is Johnny Cycles with CyclesGaming.com here for another edition of Murders at Karlov Manor cards for Commander. Today I'll be discussing my mono green elf deck with Sylvana Heart of the Wilds, but before I get to that, check out my website, CyclesGaming.com. I just posted an article and video yesterday of my budget rule dragons and modern deck. Super fun, super competitive games. Check it out. Like me on YouTube, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. All right, let's jump to it. So Sylvana Heart of the Wilds is a alternative elf commander from Mono Green Elf Ball. Excuse me, I've been sick all week, but I feel like I'm losing my voice. You can read about the deck here. You can read about why I picked Sylvana over Susie, Azuri, Renegade Leader. The short of it is this she's a friendlier commander, I guess. I also like the mana ramp and the card draw potential there, but casting your Sylvana Heart of the Wilds will rarely make you the target at the table. Casting Azuri Renegade Leader will almost always make you the target at the table. So that's one big reason. Anyway, so Murders at Karlov Manor did give us a few cards that I think should be included, could be included, and might could be included in our mono green elf deck. So let's jump right to it. The first and only card that should be included, in my opinion, is Archdruid's Charm. For 3 green mana, it's an instant. You get to choose one. Search your library for a creature or land card and reveal it. Put it onto the battlefield tapped if it's a land card. Otherwise, put it into your hand and then shuffle. The second mode, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And 3, exile target artifact or enchantment. Wow, what a card. That's all I can say. Yes, it's triple green, which will limit its play in most commander decks, but for a mono green deck and an elf deck in particular, this card is busted. Why? Well, there's obviously the flexibility of the 3 modes, which I'll talk about each one in a second, but within each mode there's some flexibility. Well, maybe not, but within the first mode, the most important and the one we're most interested in, there is some crucial flexibility in that we get to pick a land or a creature. So if we're in the late game or the mid game, and we need to find our mana ramp, we can go get a Nykthos Shrine the Nyx. What's not to like? We don't really play a lot of ways to search up just any old land like Expedition Map or Sylvan Scrying, which may be an oversight on our part. I might need to make some room for those types of cards, but I don't like playing the same cards in all my decks, and pretty much any deck can benefit from Expedition Map, and any green deck can benefit from Sylvan Scrying. So I like to, as you can read in my philosophy on Commander at my website, I don't like running the exact same cards in all my decks just because they're the best. It makes playing the decks more boring and less unique. So anyway, this gives us a way to tutor up a card we could use, a land for the late game if we really need to power out a lot of cards by doubling, tripling, quadrupling our mana, or we just go get our finisher and create a Hoof Behemoth. And finally, if we want to tutor up or need to tutor up a utility creature, something that prevents our control opponent from countering our spells, or a reanimation opponent from bringing things back from the graveyard, we can go get an Allosaurus Shepherd or a Scavenging Ooze or whatever utility creature we need in the moment, all for 3 green mana, all at instant speed. So that flexibility within the first mode, which is obviously the best mode, for the most exciting mode, I should say, is really, really important and really makes this card so powerful in our deck. The second mode, I didn't write about this per se. I just focused on the fact that it's a fight spell, but it's really not a fight spell, right? That's one thing Wizards is kind of getting away from. That used to be that Green had fight spells. Your creature would fight another creature, meaning they would both do damage equal to their power to each other, and you would often lose your creature in combat, even if you killed your opponent's creature. But now Wizards has gone away from that and is starting to make it where the target creature is not a true fight spell. It's just your creature deals damage equal to its power to a target creature. So it's a conditional removal spell. And that's what this does. So we get the counter, +1/+1 counter on our creature, and it deals damage to another opponent's creature equal to its power. We don't run a lot of targeted removal in our mono green deck. Most of our removal is geared towards flying creatures. We're looking to beat ground creatures through combat, essentially forcing our opponent to block or die by growing our team bigger and wider and faster than our opponent can. So Archdruid's Charm's flexibility here to give us a little bit of targeted removal for Kranko, Mob Boss, or whatever other ground creature is bothering us is a much needed effect for our deck. Finally, the last mode of the charm It's easy to overlook this one, I think, because green has so many ways of dealing with artifacts and enchantments. But what the crucial word here that I want to highlight is exile, right? This mode exiles target enchantment or artifact. So anything with indestructible, we don't care about, which is basically the One Ring is really popular and a powerful artifact, but any of the god cycles, most of those are indestructible. We get to exile them. So the exile effect on this card is super powerful, and that's you add all that together, right? You take first of all 3 modes for 3 green mana, instant speed is already pretty busted. The first mode, the flexibility with choosing a land or a creature, busted. The second mode, a +1/+1 counter, and not a true fight spell, but just damage to another creature, so you don't even have to risk losing your creature. Busted. I should say pushed. It's really not that busted, but it's as good as that kind of effect is right now in Magic. And then the third mode, exile versus destroy, also pushed. So we're seeing essentially the 3 modes each are at their highest ceiling that Wizards has given cards like this. Put it all together, and this card is extremely powerful. I would say that you would expect a card like that with all the effects of this to jump up in price, but the triple green will keep it limited to mono green decks largely. Green X decks, which are heavy on green. So I don't know how much it's going to jump up in price for. I think it's around $7 right now. I could see it hitting $10, but probably not going to be a super expensive card in Commander just because it's already limited to only one color essentially. Even if green is one of the most popular colors. Moving on, could be included, Analyze the Pollen. Now this one I think is under $1. I might just go and buy a bunch of these because I do think it has some great potential for any deck that has green in it, especially because it's not just because it's 1 mana, because it's 1 single green, obviously. Sorcery speed, let's read it. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect evidence 8, and that means exile cards with total mana value 8 or greater from your graveyard. It says search your library for a basic land card. If evidence was collected, instead search your library for a creature or land card. Reveal that card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. So the most obvious analog is Traverse the Ulvenwald that allows us to do the same thing, but instead of collect evidence, it's Delirium. In our deck, I think it's going to be easier to collect evidence than to achieve Delirium. So I believe if you're playing Traverse the Ulvenwald in your Elf deck, I would go ahead and switch it out for Analyze the Pollen. I picked Archdruid's Charm over Analyze the Pollen because of all the flexibility I just talked about, even though it's 3 mana. I do think Analyze the Pollen is a powerful spell, largely because of this. It goes from finding a basic land if you just pay a single green to finding any land when you collect evidence or creature, right? So it's a similar effect to the first mode of Archdruid's Charm for just exiling mana value 8 or from your graveyard. Mid game, this shouldn't be too difficult. Late game certainly shouldn't be too difficult. And that was in the late game or mid game is precisely when we want to go find a Nykthos, Shrine of Nyx, or a Craterhoof Behemoth. So I think this card is super powerful. Definitely could be included. We already play, I think, 6 tutor effects, and with Archdruid's Charm, that would be 7. I do like the fact that at 1 mana we can go fetch up a forest just to fix our mana if we need to, or make sure we're not missing land drops. Same thing as Traverse the Ulvenwald, and I do like the additional flexibility that comes with collect evidence part of it. So I'm on the fence about putting this in the deck. I might try it out. I might, if I find somewhere to cut. But right now it's only in the could be included. I don't think you're going to go wrong by putting it in your deck. I just don't know where I'm going to cut to find it. I still have a few cards from Lord of the Rings that I found online from the Commander decks that I would like to find room for. So I'm not sure what to cut for this. Anyway, moving on to our last section, might could be included. We have 2 cards here. Case of the Trampled Garden, an enchantment, 2 colorless and a green. When this case enters the battlefield, distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures you control. To solve it, creatures you control have a total power 8 or greater, and when it's solved, you get whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on a target attacking creature. It gains trample until end of turn. So we do have a few ways of abusing the +1/+1 counters by if we have an Incubation Druid or a Rishkar Pima Renegade out, for instance, we can put counters on our creatures, and with the Incubation Druid suddenly be tapping for 3 mana and are making all of our other creatures tap for a single mana. So that's a powerful synergy. We only play 3 cards that really are going to benefit from that kind of synergy, though. So is it really worth 3 mana for those counters? Probably not. most thing, of course, what we're interested in for real is the solve portion of it, which will give one of our creatures trample while also a +1/+1 counter whenever it attacks. So this would allow us to theoretically attack with a single creature, close out the game via trample, that without having to find our Crater Hoof Behemoth. Is it better than a card like Primal Rage, which is 2 mana, that gives all creatures trample, or Nylea, God of the Hunt, which is 4 mana and does some other things while giving all creatures trample? Probably not. But I do think that it could certainly find a home in a budget version of the Elf deck, and I'm going to try to find a home for it in my budget life game deck because of the counter shenanigans, and trample is a powerful effect. So it might be included depending on your build and your budget. Finally, pick your poison. 1 green mana sorcery, choose one. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact. Each opponent sacrifices an enchantment. Each opponent sacrifices a creature with flying. Super big upside, super high ceiling if you're playing against 3 opponents and they all have flyers. A green, one single green gets 3 creatures. Very powerful. For us, our best creature is to get a Linvala, Keeper of Silence. Shuts down basically most of our deck. But of course, it's our opponent's choice. So there are going to be plenty of times when our opponent sacrifices a 1/1 flying spirit token, for instance, and they get to keep their massive creature that's really causing us problems. So that is a drawback and why it's in our might could be section. It does let us get around hexproof or indestructible if that's the only creature on our opponent's board. So that's pretty cool. And that's one of the reasons why it might could be included. And then the flexibility of getting rid of an artifact or enchantment. Again, very limited and conditional. We have to hope that our opponent only has whatever artifacts ailing us the most. It's their only one. But you can navigate the game or get lucky, or that's just the way it might be sometimes, where this card will really shine. For a single green, it's a low investment. It does give us a little bit more removal, a little bit more flexibility. So I could see it could be included in your deck if you're looking for a cheaper way to get a similar effect than something like Crushing Canopy or Broken Wings, both of which target, but for more mana. Anyway, those are the cards I think should, could, and might could be included in my mono green Elves deck with Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. What do you think from this set should go in an Elf deck? What cards are you most excited about for your mono green deck or your mono green Elf deck? Let me know in the comments or hit me up in my email, johnnycycles16@gmail.com. And like always, thanks for watching. This is Johnny Cycles with cyclesgaming.com, and I'll catch you on the next one.